Hi, and welcome to today's Studio Armor Review. Alright, we just completed the Eldar and Dark Eldar portions of the Exodites of Lorien, and now I'm going to introduce you to the third surprise codex for my Exodites. Now, as you know, if you have watched through the other two portions of my army, you'll notice there weren't that many representations of dinosaurs or native fauna of the Maiden Worlds. That was definitely something that was discouraging as I started pouring through those codexes trying to find equivalents. Now I have found a couple more to add into the Dark Eldar. I just haven't been able to finish the models yet. You'll see those add up to the, or get added to the Studio Armor Review as they're completed. But really, it wasn't completely satisfying because it was still missing that real full Exodite flair with dinosaurs and dragon riders and all that kind of stuff. Well, it took me a while to find how to do this, because I wanted to have a codex or an army that was entirely vehicleless, and I really wanted to make sure there were dragon riding elves, and there were just a bunch of different actual dragons running around the battlefield killing things, right? So it took a long time to figure this out. I could not find something that made sense. I just pretty much gave up. And then I was playing an opponent of mine and took an interest in their codex just from a fluff perspective and looked at the rules. And the fact is the Dragonmasters is what I call them. This is the Dragonmaster portion of my Exodite Society. They're the original Eldar who developed the ability to commune with the native beasts of Lorien. So you end up with Eldar who find out that even though they're pursuing other paths, they find out that they can commune and communicate with and even control native beasts. Well, they decided to pursue that path instead of whatever path they had chosen previously, and the result is that a portion of the Exodite Society is now actually working with the house clans and the independent clans by actually riding or using the beast. Think of Dinotopia, okay? Except without all the without all the vegan references. Because Exodites will herd their megadons, large sauropod type creatures, and they'll use their flesh for meat, they'll drink their blood, they'll use the meat, the skin, the hide for leather goods. And so this is definitely a ranching style rural kind of society. Well, what I decided to do is as I realized you have these elves that would ride dragons, and some of them would control other dragons and such. I stumbled upon a rule, and it just a flash of light. It's like the light bulb, almost literally could be seen above my head. And when I realized that all the rules in the Tyrannid Codex for the synapse powers and the instinctive behavior fit, it was like, oh my goodness, there it is. There's the Exodite Codex. Of course, some of the guys in gaming didn't particularly appreciate having elves or Eldar run as Tyrannids, but it's my army anyway, so I was convinced this is definitely the right way to go. And so I was able to actually build an Exodite army entirely based on the Tyrannid Codex with absolutely no vehicles, with a very Sylvan Elf kind of flavor to it, very much like Exodites. And every unit within the codex that was a synapse creature would end up being a creature that either had its own dragon controlling ability, or it was an Eldar Exodite, either riding or controlling a beast, right? Now, all the non-synapse creatures were either going to be dinosaurs or other creatures native to Lorien. Artillery units can still be in there. They could be large dinosaurs with weapon systems on their backs, or crew riding in howdahs on top of their backs. The options for modeling were just phenomenal. It was exactly what I was looking for. So this is the introduction to my Dragonmasters army. The Exodite's based completely on the Tyranid Codex. Now, some of the models you'll see finding double duty between this codex and one of the previous ones, or seeing double duty within this codex itself. I'm a firm believer in making models that will fit one or two different units, or two or more different units, depending on how they're equipped. And I like to be able to magnetize and swap weapon systems out so they can represent different things. It's a lot cheaper that way, right? So anyway, some of the things I had to kind of overcome, though, were a lot of the Tyranid nature, flavor of the codex itself. And so I had to figure out a way to interpret some of these things. The hardest things to interpret were the weapons, and we'll go over the weapons and how I interpret a lot of those as we review the specific units in the future videos. But some of the more important general rules I needed to figure out how to interpret were the instinctive behavior, the shadow and the warp, and the warlord traits. I mean, I needed to do this, and especially the powers of the hive mind, psychic powers, right? So let's just start with the warlord traits. So, the first warlord trait has to do with making another terrain piece become dangerous, carnivorous jungle kind of thing. Well, I was able to kind of reinterpret that to be kind of what I call World Master. Essentially, the Warlord's link extends to not only the dragons, but other flora and fauna of the planet. So he's actually able to awaken the grasses and plants of the in the area to attack something. So he can take a regular piece of terrain and call on its inhabitants, its native plants and animals, to attack whatever enters it, right? So that was the way I did the first warlord trait. The second one was the, just simple heightened senses becomes night vision. No big deal there. I used the term Dragon Master in this to differentiate between one who controls a dragon, has the synapse rule, versus a regular Eldar. And so I named the third warlord trait Master Dragon Master. This is the synaptic linchpin rule, which allows you to get basically the warlord's range is 18 inches for synapse instead of the regular 12. The fourth warlord trait is Mind Eater, and I had to figure a way to come up with that one, because the key here is your army gains 2 victory points for each enemy model with the independent character rules special rule that's slain by a warlord in a challenge. Well, I figured that sounds like a Dragon Master champion. So the warlord is actually trying to, not only does he have a psychic link to the animals, but he's actually able to reach out and touch the minds of his opponents, and he seeks to destroy them in close combat. And through that, he kind of almost reads their minds and understands their way of thinking and their approach to battle, their strategies, their memories, to help learn and adjust their plans accordingly. Digestive Denial was the fifth one. I changed that to Master Deception. I figured you're able to change a area terrain, and reduce its cover save by 1. I'm thinking the warlord could be an expert at conforming an area to make it look like it has more cover than it really does. That's kind of the only thing I come up with there. Not necessarily the best interpretation, but it works, I think, for me. And finally, the Adaptive Biology. It gives you basically feeling the pain. So that's an adrenaline boost or adrenal boost. So the warlord, whether it's a Dragon Master or a creature with the synapse special rule, has either adrenal glands that push him along, or he uses herbal potions and medicine as a chemical enhancement, if you will. So that's how I did the warlord traits. Powers of the Hive Mind, it really wasn't that hard to come up with some of them. Some of them were kind of fun. So the Dominion power, is, I didn't change it. I mean, it increases your sit-ups range, so it just makes the Dragon Master that much more powerful in his ability to reach out to, a wider area of the enemy, or sorry, not the enemy, the host, right? Now, Catalyst was kind of interesting. It took a bit to figure out, because here Catalyst gives Feel No Pain to units within, one unit within 12 inches. And I realized, well, what the Dragon Master is doing there is he's actually touching the mind of the beasts in that unit. And he is helping them overcome their pain, the reaction to pain, fight against it so that they can stand up against it longer. So, horror was real simple. Essentially, the psychic presence, whether it's from one of the beasts or the Dragon Master himself, basically reaches into the opponent's mind and just stirs up terrible nightmarish images and such. Again, the concept of the Dragon Masters is they've been able to reach into the minds of these dragons and commune with them. This isn't a controlling kind of thing as much as a relationship thing. And so that can extend to other living creatures as well. Finally, Onslaught. Same reason, same idea. It's getting in the mind and helping them be a little more physically active, a little more swift, sharper reflexes so they can run and shoot. Paroxysm is essentially attacks an enemy, and while they're in the mind, they hit the pain receptors and cause them to feel this terrible pain. And so while it doesn't hurt them, it reduces their ability to fight. If you've ever been in any type of, whether it's paintball or if you're into any LARPing, fencing, martial arts, you name it, if you're hurt, you have physical pain, you're not going to perform at your peak condition. So I figured that made perfect sense. Psychic Scream, didn't need much interpretation there. It's an unleashing the Psychic Scream. Warp Blast, that one was... it took me a while. I couldn't figure something out, so I actually realized, there's nothing wrong with the Dragon Master actually being able to reach out and manifest powers from the warp and take warp energy and fire it. They are Eldar after all, so the Eldar can do that. Well, makes sense the Exodites could too. So that's how I dealt with the powers of the Hive Mind. I call them powers of the Dragon Mind. Shadow in the Warp was an interesting rule I had to try to figure out how to explain. And it dawned on me, the Exodites are trying to remain hidden. Bile-Tan Craft World frequently defends Maiden Worlds. They want to keep them hidden and protect them from detection and protect them from anyone trying to explore them so that they don't have enemy or Xenos landing on them and trying to populate them. They've lost too many to the Imperium and Orc as it is, and they got to fight to take them back. So their goal is to hide themselves psychically from everything. So they've been able to nullify the powers of the warp in a lot of ways. Now, since the powers of the Hive Mind or Dragon Mind are not related to the warp necessarily, they're related to their control, their ability to get into the dragon's minds. It's not going to affect the Exodites. It's just going to affect enemies. And of course, instinctive behavior works perfectly. I mean, some creatures, they're carnivores. Some are hunters, ambush hunters. Some are just grazers. And so I didn't have to do any interpretation whatsoever. It was a perfect fit. I was really, really pleased. Now, the hard thing to try to do is figuring out I can use Tyranids alongside my Eldar. Because Tyranids and Eldar are come the apocalypse allies. They are really not going to work together. And I figured that doesn't make any sense. Well, I figured it dawned on me, yeah, you know what, it really does. Because for the other Eldar who are nearby, put yourself in their shoes. What if you had a neighbor who had a raptor as a pet? how likely would you be to go over their yard? Go over to their house for dinner? You'd be kind of skittish. You'd be on guard, watching to see if that thing was going to attack them, right? And then I figured, okay, so that explains how the Eldar and Dark Eldar won't trust the Dragon Riders necessarily in the heat of combat. But what about the other way? Well, I figured you have all of these instinctively run beasts, carnivores and especially carnivores, but you even have herbivorous, sauropods and what have you. They're not likely to associate with anyone that they're not familiar with. They might even want to eat anyone they're not familiar with. So the Dragon Riders have to, or Dragonmasters, sorry, have to control them to the point where they're not going to give into their baser instincts and attack the fellow Exodites that don't have the power to exert control or influence over the dragons. So it actually kind of worked out pretty good. I was very pleased to kind of see how that played out, and it worked out on the tabletop pretty convincingly, because the units have to stay 6 inches apart, or they have to roll a d6 to see if they can take an action. And it adds a nice little tactical quirk to it. It makes it a little more fun to play when I do ally something in it. Though, as you guys, my army's large enough now, I don't have to ally it at all anymore. So I am really, really psyched that I was finally able to find a single codex that captured what I had imagined the Exodites to be. And it's granted, it's an odd codex, and I've been able to add in most of the new stuff that that GW has come out with within the recent supplements and what have you. And actually, some of the formations they came out with, like in the Leviathan, or those kind of supplements, they really added to this Exodite army. It gave it some other levels and details and a flair that really, really fits. So I'm looking forward to kind of walking you through each of these units and how the different formations can play out. Now, I do not have all the units, that's for sure, in that codex. But I have an idea and explanation for, I believe, every one of them. I just don't have models for everyone. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through all the ones I have models for. And then I'll save another video at the very end of this to kind of go over my vision for the ones I haven't completed models on yet. That way you kind of know what's coming. And I may never build some of the models just because I may not really want to run those things. But I very well may, just because it's kind of, some of the concepts are really cool. Even if I don't run them a lot, just to have them, it's kind of cool. So anyway, I hope you understand now how I was able to take the Tyranid Codex and bring about a entirely Exodite army out of it. You'll see a lot more, like I said, as we go through unit by unit, the different interpretations and how they really seem to mesh well. But I'll let you be the judge. Go ahead, share, like, and subscribe, please, and again, comment below. Let me know what you think. And honestly, how do you feel about Exodites being represented by a Tyranid Codex as opposed to an Eldar-based Codex? Like I said, I'm loving it, but I do have one guy at gaming who's really doesn't particularly care for that idea, and I wouldn't mind, hearing kind of some discussion about that. If it really is, there's some real valid, or even if you guys think it's a valid reason you have for why it doesn't sound right, let me know. I want to kind of understand different perspectives. Okay, well, hope you enjoyed the video. I will see you in the next review when we actually go over what I call the Great Drakes. All right, bye-bye.